you are joining us from, welcome to Talks That Teach. This is a place where ideas are not just discussed, they are put into motion. I'm your host Nasimullah Bhutta, and here we are going to explore conversations that spark growth, resilience, and leadership and transformation. Today's episode is powerful, personal, and deeply human, built through the storm. Sometimes the hardest, you can say, the seasons in life don't come to break us, they come to build us. Today's conversation is about great resilience, caregiving, leadership, gratitude, and triumph through adversity. And joining us today is a speaker, advocate, community leader, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Team Member, Kelly Yarbrough. Kelly, welcome to Talks That Teach.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. When I was, you can say, the searching and going through some material to fabricate and develop some questions, I've read one word. The word great means different things to different people. For some, it represents survival. For others, growth through adversity. And honestly, I will love to hear your perspective on this. My question is, your great framework has, you can inspired many people. When you personally hear the word great, what emotion or memory immediately comes to mind?
When I think about grit, I think about spending your energy to recover through the hard times. It's a deep personal perspective on the fact that you can be resilient through anything, and that it's a hardcore belief that of survival, essentially, ensuring that you grow, you're resilient, and then you transform into where you need to be or where you want to be. But coming from Texas, a lot of us here, we say that we have grit. And, there's the movie True Grit, where people persevere through their challenges on a regular basis. And knowing that you have the ability to come out on the other side successfully.
Right. Wonderful. Great. And sometimes life places people in a different environments before they ever discover their true strength. And I'm curious, Kelly, how did your early experiences with bullying and self-doubt shapes the woman and the leader you are today?
Those early experiences, usually as a child, when you're experiencing those and you're learning from those interactions with others, they plant things inside you as a person. And that sometimes those are wounds, and sometimes those are callings. They become who you're going to be. So, most of those wounds are self-doubt and understanding or lack of understanding of the feelings of being less than others, the fear of not understanding who you are and where you fit in the world. And then sometimes you have an instinct to just shrink. But if you then work towards where you're going to be, because at some point you have to still grow into your future, you can take those early experiences, those wounds, and build them into your calling. For me specifically, it taught me to see people who feel unseen. It made me sensitive to the battles that each individual person carries. It gave me that conviction to move toward leadership that's rooted in compassion and not ego. Bullying from other folks, and not understanding, that built my backbone. It didn't silence me, but it taught me to speak with intention. And those experiences shaped the way that I lead today with empathy, clarity, and a fierce belief that every person has value, even when they don't see it yet. Those hard years became where my grit was planted and started.
Right. A few moments before I was talking with Ella Damascus, and just like the same thing she was sharing with me. What your coincidence that you talking about in the same way? She was labeled as Miss Wrong Spelling in this way. In her early age, she was labeled in very different ways. But she decided to who you want to be and what you believe to be. And this was a big shift. Just everyone must, you can say, have an idea to believe what they want to be in their own future. It's a wonderful thing that we have to take care about our own beliefs and our own strengths. And
Absolutely.
many people quite quietly care, sorry to say, many people have, you can say, some emotional scars. I want to say many people have some emotional scars for years without realizing those very struggle. Many may be shaping their future strengths. Even they.
Absolutely.
My question to Kelly, looking back now, was there a moment when you realized your pain wasn't burying you, it was actually building you?
Absolutely. And I was also fortunate to have strong family. Not everybody does, but I was fortunate to have strong family that instilled in me the opportunity to look at those challenges and face them head on, to move around them. There's a saying from actually Sesame Street, from one of the characters, that says, if there's a rock in your road, go around it. And so I was fortunate to have been brought up from a family that had been um, living through grit for years. Um, a moment specifically, there have been several moments where I realized that what I thought was I was perceiving from interactions with others wasn't the reality. Um, so I've faced multiple situations, but not nearly as bad as I know other folks have, but situations where I had um, danger brought to me physically, where I had individuals that were dishonest with me,
Mhm.
and situations where I had to find resources to move around to get around and my rock in the road. Um, but all of those are quiet moments where realization comes after that heartbreak and that betrayal. And a lot of times people experience that they have the rug pulled out from them with all of those different things. But it takes, and John Maxwell talks about spending time in reflection. So it takes some time for that reflection to understand what you experienced and how you can learn from it and move forward. If it doesn't destroy you, then it develops you. So that shift changes everything. And it's about your perspective. So instead of saying what's happening to me, which you may experience in the moment, but once you've gone through the experience and you start looking at and reflecting on that, then you can start asking, how is this growing me? How is this adding to my strength? How can I use this for discernment to maybe establish boundaries? What wisdom did you gain from that experience, and what can you develop for it? Can you develop compassion and courage from that. So you know, the one thing is, I didn't let that pain or those experiences bury me. I let it plant me. And when I finally understood that, then I stopped fighting in that season and then started going around that rock.
Right, wonderful, wonderful. And the statement you shared, the character, there's a rock in the road, and go around. That's a wonderful thing. And one thing more that you have shared, that what we are experiencing, if we have some reflection that will guide us, that will be, you can say, wisdom for us, how to figure out what is best for us, and how can we move forward. That's a great. A lot of people feel stuck because they believe hardship means failure, and sometimes the emotional weight becomes so heavy they just want to give up. And honestly, I think many people can relate this to you can themselves. What would you say to someone who feels emotionally exhausted and ready to throw in the towel?
There's another quote. One of my favorite movies, Gone with the Wind. And the very end line is, after all, tomorrow is another day. And so
Can you
I,
repeat it? I'm going to pen down it. May you
I'm
repeat it?
sorry.
May you repeat
Yeah.
it?
Tomorrow's another day. So there is another opportunity to rest and become stronger the next day. A lot of times, that situation is where people are not necessarily weak from that exhaustion, but they're weary and they just maybe need to rest. They need to rest their emotions. They need to maybe remove themselves from that scenario if they can. They need to use their resources to find support for those scenarios. You know, John Maxwell talks about the law of proximity, surrounding yourself with others that are going in the direction that you want to go. So, finding those resources, having that opportunity to breathe, reflect, like we talked about, and then surround yourself with others that understand that that exhaustion is not the end of your story. That's just that day. So they, you know, can lay that burden down for the moment. They don't have to carry everything alone. Just because they're resting, they're not quitting, but they're rebuilding their momentum for the next day. And then I had to learn that myself. You know, you don't rise just because you're strong or you think you're strong. You really have to find that support and love and the energy and encouragement to take the next step. And that's actually part of the other one of the other books from John Maxwell is High Road Leadership is setting your mindset to choose the path that's going to heal because nobody operates alone. You either decide that you're going to operate with people or against people or with opportunities or without those opportunities. So you have the option to choose that path.
Right. And if I would like to sum up what you have shared with me, that's a wonderful quote. Tomorrow is an other day. You can say there are a number of possibilities for you. You can say the new day, new possibilities. It's the your mindset that will shift the life of a person.
Mhm.
Can you move from Washington D.C. alone, without connections? Takes a real courage and belief in yourself. So let me ask you this. What gave you the confidence to take such a bold leap into the unknown?
You know, I don't know that it was confidence as much as it was a calling.
Okay,
Um, I just made my mind up that this is the life I wanted to design for myself. And I took the steps necessary to move in that direction. Um, you know, that's something that John Maxwell talks about also the law of design. If you know, a lot of people don't have a plan for where they're going in this life. So at some point, I had decided this is what I wanted to design for myself. So I picked up, and at that time we had real, actually, paper newspapers, hard copy. So I picked up the newspaper and I looked for a job and I reached out and applied for it and flew up there and got an interview. And that was I took, that one step that I could use with the resources I had. Once I had that step accomplished, then I took the next step and then kept going forward because I knew what my calling was. And so I knew exactly what I was doing, and that builds confidence because that supports the fact that and all confidence is believing in your abilities. So I took the steps that built believing in my abilities and built my confidence. Even though you don't know what lies ahead, but staying where you are isn't where you want to be. So when I went there, I wasn't necessarily alone, but I was determined. I knew that I needed to grow beyond my comfort zone, and I wanted to see who I could be away from where I was and the labels and expectations and patterns that I had. So it wasn't necessarily the absence of fear, because there were definitely opportunities for me to be frightful of what I might meet up with. But I just made that decision anyway because I wanted to specifically answer my calling to learn about how our laws are made, and eventually determined to meet people that were able to, again, using those resources to help me move into the career that I wanted. And that decision was the most defining chapter of my life.
Right. When you say maybe, when I asked you how you did it with your courage, you said that maybe it was a calling or confidence. To make it clear, a difference of calling or confidence for audience. When you say maybe it was the call or calling, what do you mean by this?
By calling,
Uh,
um,
yes.
I see it as a place in your heart where you know that you want to grow, a place professionally where you want to grow. Thinking back to remember those times where we talked about um, wanting to make sure that you add value to others that are not maybe not seen, and that's where I was moving to where I knew that I wanted to be from my heart and soul. That was my calling, was to move forward in my career, as opposed to courage. Courage is something you build, something that you believe in your own abilities, and you take that step despite the fact that you might have some fears about it.
Right, right. Wonderful. Sometimes resilience doesn't look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it simply means surviving one difficult day at a time. And I think this is where your story becomes deeply relatable. During your toughest seasons and times, what kept you moving forward emotionally and mentally?
There's pretty much three things that keep me going: my faith, first of all, um, believing that there's a purpose and a plan for the things that I'm meant to do, um, purpose, and the support and encouragement of people. So faith reminds you that your story isn't over.
Mhm.
Purpose reminds you that your pain isn't pointless. And the right people, remind you that you're not walking alone. There have been, several experiences where maybe I didn't feel the strongest. And there have certainly been days where I questioned what I was doing or everything that was happening, and days that I felt like that I was standing in a pile of rubble and had to rebuild. But even in those moments, there's something inside me, something that whispers, keep going. There's more for you. There's more that you're meant to do. So I learned that resilience is not necessarily about not experiencing those situations and not necessarily about being unbreakable, but it's about being willing to rebuild. And every time that you go through those scenarios and you rebuild, and in my situation, every time I rebuilt, I came out stronger and clearer and even more grounded in who I truly am.
Right. You mentioned three things. So one is faith, second is purpose, and the third one people.
Correct.
They contributed in this context well. Right.
Right.
Life has a way of testing people when they least expect it through betrayals, setbacks, caregiving, or even loss. When you really think about it now, how did adversity change the way you lead, serve, and connect with people today?
I watched one of the most humbling experience is watching my father live through years of battling cancer, multiple forms of cancer. And I watched him go through chemotherapy, blood transfusions, hospitalizations, doctors, nurses, traveling miles to do it, being up early in the morning. And I watched him say thank you to every individual he came in contact with, despite the fact that he had a disease that was likely to end his life. He continued to persevere, to look forward, and to do it with gratitude and grace. That adversity, that watching that adversity, that softened me, but also it strengthened me at the same time because I was learning from him. I was learning through his experiences because I was walking side by side with him through them. It made me obviously more compassionate, but also more discerning. I it made me more open-hearted and more grateful, but it also created more boundaries and I took on more responsibility to move things forward because I knew that I was observing a leader, even though it wasn't a title, he was leading the people that were treating him. So I lead differently through that because now I understand what it feels like to be that person that maybe, they feel broken, but he's still showing up, still with the smile on his face. And I can see that, he was carrying an invisible weight. And I understand what it feels like, to rebuild through my experiences, but also through his experience. So it's not necessarily about being the strongest person in the room, but it's about being authentic, self-aware, willing to grow. And that was one thing I saw change in him was he was willing to grow and learn and try new things. But he also he always had a 10-year plan. Despite what he knew could happen tomorrow, he was looking forward to the future and continuing that, but thanking everybody along the way. I spent a lot of time researching all of his treatments, organizing, planning, and I tried to spend time also experiencing and living in that moment and being present for that. And I think that is part of the way that I serve is because rather than just trying to fix people, you have to walk with them, listen to them, honor their journeys. And now I connect with folks because I'm leading from a place of that truth, not just getting to the next level, not just having them get to the next level, but where they are and where they need to go and what they need to do to get through it. So that adversity in watching him, it didn't harden him. It didn't make him sour. It refined him and it made him happy through his adversity.
Right. It's a very, you can say, personal and emotional example that you have shared here. Leader without title. Leadership is not about the position and title. It is all about, you can say, what you are contributing towards society. And for your father is a really and genuine example for you that make you walk with people, listen, and make you compassionate, empathetic, and you're responsible in your life. And sorry to hear about all that. That was the panic condition you suffered a lot. And may God bless him in his soul as well. Thank you very much for, you can say, sharing your personal, you can say, the ideas and sharings. I would like to move, obviously, a little bit. I get emotional at this moment, a little bit sad about hearing all that, because I know the cancer is, you can say, we cannot express the pain. We are around the people. My elder brother, you can die through the lungs cancer. I was with him, and doctor told me he has only 80 days, but I couldn't share this idea with him. And he was time and again asked me, you can say, what the doctor says, why not they are going, I'm not under process. He was on the last stage. Doctor was not willing to do anything. Just on, you can say, the to relieve the pain, they injected him time and again. I, you can say, suffered that trauma as well. And okay, I can feel that, but you felt at that moment. Okay,
It is a tough situation to be in.
yes, we have to lead them. Okay, Kelly, moving to the next. In a word, constantly chasing more gratitude and easily become an, you can say, the afterthought. And I love to hear your thoughts on this. How has gratitude helped you to stay grounded through the caregiving stress and personal trials, just as you mentioned a little moment before?
Like I said, watching his gratitude and learning that gratitude, um, that became my anchor when everything else was swirling around me and everything was unstable. And it doesn't erase all of the stress, the exhaustion, the fear, but it gives me a place to stand from, especially now with this passing, to continually look at what the positives are. Look at those last days, those good memories. When you're caregiving, when you're taking care of anyone, whether it's your child, your family member, your spouse, your significant other, even maybe your emotional support animals, or anything that you're really, the one that's really giving. um, Gratitude is what pours back to you. The why are you spending so much time, and when you experience that and understand and really focus on the gratitude of having those opportunities, then that pours back into you. um, I learned to look for those small mercies. You look for those good days, those moments of clarity, those great memories, those shared laughs, and then, making sure that you take that moment to breathe and spend some time in peace in the middle of that chaos. Because if you don't, then you're not likely to to be able to be resilient through the process. I was telling someone the other day that was dealing with some challenges. Sometimes you have to put your mask on first before you can help other people. Just like on the airplane, they tell you to always put your mask on before you put the other person's mask on, because you have to be the one that's strong and healthy to help the other one that may be struggling. So you have to spend that time also taking care of you. And part of that is thinking about what you're grateful for, what the the good things are that you're experiencing or that you've experienced, or what the future may hold. It doesn't necessarily make the situation any easier, but it makes it more meaningful to you. It reminds me that even in the heaviness, in the chaos, there's still beauty. Even in those loss, do you experience so much love? And even when those uncertain times, like you experienced, there was a purpose that you had for those few days. And using that gratitude, it grounds you. It continues to make you strong when life is trying to shake you through those experiences.
Right, right. Absolutely, you can say that contributing towards our audience as well. Connecting to this question, just you can say that it may be the extension of our previous question. Caregiving is one of the most emotional and selfless forms of leadership. I consider it in this way. Looking back now, what did you supporting your parents? Just you mentioned your father's case as well through illness. Teach you about compassion and human strength. What are these things, please?
You know, it's not just my own experience. I connect with others that are in similar situations where they are daily having to sacrifice for others. So I observe in them, and I'm learning for myself that strength, it's not a loud strength. You see the quiet, consistent, steady, and unseen strength. You this It's the strength that you see in them, and you see um, in yourself, to show up again and then again, even when you're in that scenario where your heart's breaking or you're just emotionally drained. That strength comes from advocating, knowing that it's your responsibility and your duty to provide comfort, and then, holding that person's hand, even if you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I've uh, I've seen it in others that take care of folks and their children, or others in the scenario where they have daily struggles where they actually don't have the ability to advocate for themselves or fight for themselves or verbalize what they even need sometimes. So support, watching those, and then supporting my parents through those illnesses. Um, it taught me that compassion is not just feeling; it's an action. But it's also about being patient, being present, choosing to love, even when you're frustrated and even when you're tired. The most important thing that it teaches me is that honoring somebody's dignity when they're at their most vulnerable is what makes you the person that's living your purpose.
Right.
And people are stronger than they think, but they shouldn't have to be strong alone. Using those resources, finding those others, having conversations like we're having today, that caregiving and observing that in others, that deepens my humanity. It softens me and it teaches me how to love in a greater capacity. And it continues to shape the way I lead with empathy, patience, and respect for those battles that people don't talk about.
Mhm. Right. Everything you can say you share with me quite resonates with you can say the everyone, because we are in a real life. So many caregivers quietly carry emotional weight while trying to remain strong for everyone else, you can say, rather than their own personality, for anyone else. And often their struggles go unseen. And honestly, I think many people need this conversation. What advice would you give to people carrying carrying heavy responsibilities while trying to stay emotionally strong?
First of all, you know, I would tell them you don't have to be strong all the time. It's not a performance, it's not a competition, it's a rhythm. There's going to be days when you carry the weight and gracefully and you survive and you feel strong at the end of the day. And then there's those days when that weight carries you. And that's part of this journey. And you have a choice. You can make this journey or you can make another choice. But if once you make that choice and you choose to go forward, then you need to make sure you give yourself permission to rest. Resting is not a weakness. That's wisdom. That's time for reflection and regeneration of your energy. Sometimes you have to ask for a help before you break. You have to use those resources. Support is not just a luxury, it's a lifeline. And if you don't build that in, you're going to break. And that, again, if you break, you didn't have your mask on. You have to have your mask on in order to continue to provide that support. Um, and sometimes you have to stay connected to something bigger than the burden. I talked about the choice. Is the choice that you're making to take care of others based on your faith, your purpose, your family, what you took on as that responsibility? And if so, those are the kinds of things and conversations and resources to go to so that you can get refilled and regenerated for the next step of the journey. And always practice gratitude, even in those small doses. It keeps you from breaking. Looking at those moments that we talked about earlier, making sure that you recognize those good days, be present in the quiet times, even though even with my mother who can't communicate due to stroke, we spend time reflecting on the past. I find the times where I get good conversation or good memories, and we spend that time together. And that makes me grateful. And it moves me forward through the next experience. So, for those caregivers, you're allowed to be human, you're allowed to feel, you're allowed to be tired, and you're allowed to need some help sometimes.
Kelly, you are really a great human being, and you served your mother and father. I didn't, you can say, feel that you are alone. Such people are very rare, and you are one of the wisest people in the world, and you are one of the example in the world that can give a message to others. What a way as you communicate with your mother. It's a wonderful way. I would like to share you why I would like to share with you. I think God have give us a chance to talk with each other. One of my younger brothers, I haven't shared this idea. You can say with others. I'm sharing with you, and it is live. No worries. He is unable to speak. At the age of 7, uh, he got some, you can say, I was quite young at that moment. I have no, we live in a village at that moment. He has some, you can say, got some problem. We visited doctor at that village. He injected him something, some medicine, and it reacted at that moment, and he got to some extent unable to speak. And now he's 40 years of his age. He is now with my elder brother in Lahore. And we communicate when he was with me, with my mother and father. We lived together as a giant family. My mother, my father, my younger brother, and me with my family. Though we have separate rooms, but I used to, you can just stay with my mother, my brother, and my father in that way. And and you can say when I utter some word, that my younger brother listens and responds in a different way and smiles at the moment. And you can say the word, my nickname at that moment when I was quite young, what he says to me, and my mother asked him in the same pattern, and then there may be a big laughter from his side. So the way we communicate, you can say it's a wonderful life that you have spent, and it's a blessed moment that I have you on my platform.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Okay, Kelly, it's a life that we have to move forward. Now, I will not ask such questions. I'm going to ask you the leadership questions because it makes me and you emotional as well. True leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up quietly through service, consistency, and simply being there for the others. What does leadership from the middle personally means to you?
Leadership from the middle means not waiting for permission. Um, it takes some time to observe what's happening around you. I think leading from the middle is understanding the motivation of others around you, um, and what drives them, asking questions, and from that, then determining where you can add value, where you can influence the culture or the decisions or those people, through just your everyday contact with them. It's that the leadership that grows from building your character, not necessarily from your position. Um, and you can be a leader, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're telling somebody what to do. It means that you are moving that person forward for their purpose in your connection with them. What I spend some time doing, working with individuals with many challenges, is just listen and ask them questions. And then other people will tell me, well, you're the only person that's spent this much time with me. Well, I want to spend time with you because that's my value, is to find out how we can connect and how we can move forward together, because it's lonely in this world. Um, for me, it's about those three things. These three things: responsibility, doing what's right, even when you're not required to, when nobody's watching, doing the right thing, building those relationships, building that trust with people at every level, even if it's just an interaction at the drive-through. And then being resilient, staying steady when they don't always go that way or people don't agree with you. I've been in most of my positions leading from the middle, in my career, in my community, in my family. And really, you don't have to have a title to make an impact. You need integrity, clarity, consistently. You need to show up with that positive attitude that you're going to make an impact on that person positively for that day. And listen. Active listening is the biggest influencer. And then acting on that to make your interaction with that person the best that you can make it.
Right. Kelly, you can spend 46 minutes, and I haven't idea that time have you the wings to fly. My last question before we wrap up: after everything you have experienced in your life, how would you define a truly meaningful and successful life? Because you have a quite different experience of your life.
Success is really defined by yourself.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you don't really have to be triumphant. You don't have to be extremely wealthy. Um, Success is becoming who you want to be, and surrounding yourself with the people that you want to move forward in your life with. It's not about being the most powerful person in the room. It's about when you look back in your life, did you live a trail that left people better? Did you leave a trail that left the world better? Did you design your life and accomplish what you wanted? And when you didn't, were you able to pivot into something where you could be successful in the next step, in the next part of your journey? Because even if you design your life, it doesn't necessarily happen. Things get in the way. Um, you know, car accidents happen, other
Yes.
kinds of things happen, other people walk into your life, and being able to understand that there's, again, going back to that faith and purpose and that calling, using that as a reason to then move forward and design and your life from there in the next step, and then achieving that and moving to the next step. That's success. It's the journey. It's not necessarily the end. That is the important part.
Right. Incredible audience. What I have figured out from Kelly's conversation, maybe the storm didn't come to destroy you. May it came to reveal your strength. This is Talks That Teach, where ideas are not just discussed, they are transformed into action. And from this platform, we have a message: listen, learn, and lead. I have listened, I have learned something I will implement in my life. Thank you very much for staying with us for this episode. We will, you can say, some other day, you can say, come with a new idea. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kelly, for staying with me.
Thank you. Thank you. I truly enjoyed our chat today.
Thank you very much.